Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the WE Knives Smooth Sentinel. This is kind of in between WE and Civivi knife. It's not, at least it's priced that way. I've got a few things to point out here, and I want to talk about them with you guys. Thanks so much to, it was actually Going Gear that supplied this knife in their monthly EDC box. I didn't know it existed until I got it in the box, but I'm happy to share my thoughts on it. Thanks so much to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. This knife is available right now in a few different forms. This is the most basic form, but they do have like carbon fiber and wood and all of that stuff. I'll link it down below if you guys want to check it out. It does help my channel when you use my links, but that is entirely up to you. Overall length of the Smooth Sentinel. Not a big knife, coming in at 7 inches. Blade length is coming in at exactly 3 inches. Cutting edge is about 2.85 inches. Just a couple of size comparisons today up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2. This is very much an Ontario Rat Model 2 size knife up against the Demco AD 20.5. There you go. How about up against the Spyderco Para 3? Just a little bit shorter than the Para 3. And finally, up against the Benchmade Bug Out. How's the action on this guy? Well, the disengagement of the lock bar is a little bit weird. We're going to talk more about that, but actually flipping it is just fine. It's about what you'd expect from WE. A little bit tight out of the box, but it's got a good detent, and it absolutely flips reliably. The flipper tab itself has been knocked down on both sides. I think it's got good jimping, right? If you want to push button it, you're good to go. If you want to light switch it, you're good to go, right? It's pretty run of the mill for WE. It's a little bit awkward because it's kind of a narrow, small knife, but it does work. Let's go ahead and do carry profile up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's a little bit thinner, which is nice. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. You can see here, this guy is really just not going to be an issue in the pocket. Small, slender, compact, lightweight, etc. Not a problem. Materials, what are we looking at for materials? We're looking at, in this case, an inlay of jade. Well, I call it jade. It's natural G10 before it's been dyed. And then we have a just sort of plain gray finished titanium frame. And then I believe most of these newer ones are CPM 20 CV. It's always hard to see on the knife itself because we kept saying, hey, WE, stop making don't print it so big, make it smaller. So they did. So this right here is the CPM 20 CV blade, which is the same thing as M390, if you're wondering. We're very nearly similar. So weight. Remember, we're looking at a 3-inch blade, so we are looking at 2.22 ounces of weight, making the ratios very, very good, better than perfect. Or, well, you can't really say that, but the 2.22 ounces of knife for with 3 inches of blade, that's pretty darn good. It's also lightweight and compact. It's just going to be an easy object to carry, generally speaking. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. We have a T8 pivot, and we actually have T6. We have one T6 body screw over here, and it's the same thing on this side, and then there's there's another screw underneath there, and then you've got two T6 screws right there. Very minimal hardware. I wish it was all T8, but it's not. That's okay. Simple construction, bearings, etc. Not that hard to take apart. Let's go ahead and measure blade stock thickness real quick. Blade stock thickness is coming in at, my guess is 115 thousandths. Let's take a look. No, it's actually holy moly, it's extremely thin. I was way off there. All right, let's go and move into the meat and potatoes here. Wow, this is very, very similar to many other things on the market. Many of those things are actually within the WE Civivi Sencut line. So not really a whole lot new here. As far as the handle profile goes, you're kind of cramped in there. I got my pinky slipping off the end, but it's reasonably comfortable, right? There's no real specific lock-in, right? It's just straight here, rounded off a little bit. The pocket clip is doing its usual thing. This is the same style of clip that you get on Civivi and Sencut knives. They just made it out of titanium and slapped it on a WE knife, right? This could have easily they could have just made the frame steel made the blade 14C28N and made the pocket clip steel and been like, yeah, it's a Civivi now, you know? But it's titanium and 20 CV. So, yeah. But the pocket clip, you're going to feel it, definitely. So ergonomically, it's okay. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world. You can hold on to it, right? They got some jimping right here. It'll work, right? People play texturing, a little bit of lock in there, but just there's not really a whole lot going on. The way that this is laid into the frame looks all right. It's definitely something that I've seen many, many times before, so there's not really a whole lot going on here that's unique. The flipper tab, it's a flipper. It's a nearly fully flat ground blade, very simple drop point. Yeah, I mean, it'll work. Here's the thing, I don't want anybody being like, oh, you're so nose in the air because you're changing Metal Complex because you got all these fancy. I'm not changing. It's just I think it doesn't. Me or whoever is gonna go, yeah, wow, I've seen that about a bajillion times. So no, it's not. My nose is not in the air. There's just nothing really special going on with this. I mean, I think anybody can see that. It will work. This knife will work, and it will, as far as the cutting performance, right? The blade is fine. This is a proven blade shape. It is compact, lightweight, good ratios, minimal hardware, right? All of that is fine. But there's one thing that's going to ruin it for a lot of people, right? So 20 CV blade, it's ground well, right? It's sharp. They probably have that typical 59 to 61 Rockwell, which in my opinion, is a tad low. I really like that some of these companies are attacking it a little bit higher. They're doing a minimum of 60, so 60 to 61 or 60 to 62, which I would like to see. Many people would like to see across the board. But they're sticking with this 5961. So depending on your thoughts on that, you might end up with one that some people believe is a bit soft for 20 CV/M390. Yeah, the blade's good. It'll slice, it'll cut, it'll poke, it'll do what you need it to do. No billboarding. They just have the WE logo on the pivot, and that's fine. I like that. The 20 CV print on the blade, I'm sure, is there somewhere, but it's microscopic, and at this point, that's fine. We know what it is. We can see it on the box, right? And for anybody who's, being a detective or a skeptic, it's well established that WE Knives uses the authentic steel. There are many people in the community who have tested it thoroughly to make sure that it is, in fact, the real thing. So it's not in question of, I see this every now and then, which is why I'm addressing it. WE Knives is not in question of whether or not they use authentic steel. What they're the question that people ask is, how is it heat treated, right? So if you've ever worried about that, if you're like, I don't know about these WE knife people, don't be like that. They're using the real stuff. But anyways, single standoff place for the pocket clip to mount for left-handed carry, which is fine. The clip itself is just sitting right on top of the scale, which is something that's typically what we see with a less expensive. It's one of those little details that really doesn't matter all that much, but then you see it on a knife this is priced the way that it is. And you're like, ugh. So yeah, you can mount it for left-handed carry. Honestly, I think this is a better knife for lefties, and I'll explain why here in just a moment. We have garage stops, which is nice, right? You can say this is cool. You can actually see what I mean when I say garage stops because of the translucent G10. These blade stops are the stop pin, and they ride on channels that are, on either side of the frame there. So they're hidden, but you get an additional point of contact versus a traditional stop pin where it's just the tang of the blade contacting it once. You get two lugs, right? So that's kind of nice. Increased stability while maintaining lockout strength, which, by the way, is very good. No blade play up, down, left, or right. No double. It's very close to double clutch, but it's not there. The detent balls up on the face of the blade. No pivot lash. Consistent in here, and a nice clicky detent with good centering. I think this one's a little bit off, but honestly, I think it's because I've been playing with it. Quick turn of the pivot usually is a good remedy for that. Steel lock bar insert. So you can see that right there. We're locking up at something like 50%, which is fine. And I'm sure it acts as a partial over travel, but also the scale acts as an over travel, which is actually, in this case, the problem. I'm sure you guys have seen me fumble around that a few times, and I'll tell you exactly why. This knife has a fatal flaw, and it's something that is so dumb. There's a reason why on frame locks that we see, this is an example of a good frame lock, right? And I understand this is not an exposed frame lock, it's still a frame lock. there's a gap here between the frame, the lock and the frame, right? Because when you go to disengage it, you're moving it this way, but you're also pushing it slightly towards the frame. And as you do that, you can see as I disengage it, it does actually come a little bit towards the frame, but there's still enough gap there that it doesn't drag against the frame. This guy is so freaking close to the G10 scale that when I go to disengage it with my right hand, it actually clips into the G10. I literally can't push the blade back because I'm pushing it forward. It's getting stuck on the G10 inlay and I can't completely move it over. This gap right here is simply too narrow. This is a really narrow little titanium frame lock, and I'm actually able to bend it into the knife while I'm bending it over, right? The idea behind these frame locks, some people will say, well, turn it over and use two hands and close it like a person from the Renaissance time period, right? No, these are designed to be opened and closed like this, right? This is how every single person and their aunt and their uncle and their dog and their dog's fleas opens and closes a titanium frame lock, right? I shouldn't have to Renaissance period my way around this knife, open and close it like a grandpa with two hands. Or have you ever, whenever I hand my dad a frame lock, I'm just like, oh my God, I can't. But, sorry, Dad. Yeah, no. This is designed, there's a reason for the little, the cutouts here. It's supposed to be one hand disengagement, move it over. And that time it was okay. And then close this down with one. That's the easiest, most, efficient way to do it. The least amount of brain cells required. I do not have to stop what I'm doing to dedicate a certain amount of extra mental energy, right? I don't have to stop and do that. I don't have to halt my the project or whatever it is that I'm working on, whatever it is I'm doing, I don't have to halt that process to slowly, God, that is annoying, to slowly close the knife, right? I have to accommodate for this goofy thing. I'm just saying, I know the arguments are going to come. No, it should be no problem. Open it and disengage the lock bar, and it should easily, you can see it there, it's getting stuck, and you can hear it click. Move the lock bar out of the way, the blade should close. It runs into the G10 scale, this design flaw. So this is a huge pass for me right there. Oh, but wait, it gets worse. The base price of this model is $178. Are you kidding me? Come on. I justify high price tags on knives that I really, really like, but I still know when something is overpriced. You guys have heard me say a million times, I love this knife, blah, blah, blah. It's really, really cool, and I just couldn't help myself, but my God, is it overpriced, right? And you can make the argument, well, is it overpriced if you were willing to pay for it? It's one of those things where it's like you go ahead and grit your teeth and you hand over the money even though you really, really don't want to. And after you have the thing, you realize, yeah, it's not really worth what I paid for it, but I sure do like how it looks. It's really cool. This knife does not have that. It does not have the aesthetic cool factor. It has a functional design flaw, and the price is hilarious. $178. No, this is it would have been just fine at about $140 or something like that, $145. But this is just ridiculously. It's just too much, right? Why? Because it's titanium and 20 CV. There are, like Kershaw periodically will throw 20 CV on a sub $100 USA made knife. So. Where are you getting this idea that, because titanium? $140, $145, I think would have been fine. It would have been understandable, but that's assuming it does not have the design issue with the scale. I have to assume they are all cut like this. I've looked underneath, trying to see, is there something catching that's not supposed to be catching? Is there debris in there? Something like that? No, it's literally you can actually see, I can move it. Watch this gap between the titanium frame and the G10 scale. Can actually push it in and close that gap, making it touch every single time. It's too close. And that's more and more of a problem the thinner the lock bar is. So this is a gigantic pass for me. This knife was provided to me for free. I like to remind people, there's always people who think I won't do a negative review on something that was given to me for free. Yeah, this knife was given to me for free. I can do whatever I want with it. I can give it away. I can sell it, right? I don't know what I'll do with it. I don't like to give away knives that have design flaws. I don't like to sell them either. But yeah, no. Thanks for the free knife. This is not a good design. I think it could have been okay if the price were way less, and that overlay scale was adjusted to accommodate for the lock bar being naturally pushed in towards the scale as it is disengaged, but it just wasn't. So there's just absolutely nothing special about this knife, and it is very, very boring. Sorry. It's really brutal, but that's how it's going to go sometimes, you know? Anyways, that's going to be pretty much it today. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.